Hey guys, Andrew Escobar here back with another review, and today I'm going to be reviewing the VOLTCUBE 150W power inverter, courtesy of the same Amazon seller that has sent me the DB Power air compressors to review. Now before we open the box, let's talk about a few key details. This is a 150W power inverter, but there's more to it than just that. We got to look at the specifications really quick. You'll see that this outputs voltage in the 110 volt range at 60 Hertz. If you're in the United States, this is perfectly fine, but if you were to get this particular model device in, let's say, Europe, this would not be compatible with your devices that run on a different frequency and voltage rating. On top of this, we have the rated power, which is 150 watts, the max power at 180, and peak power at 300 watts. So, it says energy efficient, 90%. So, if you were to burn, let's say, 100 watts, or if you were to produce 100 watts for a device, you would be essentially using 110 watts in order to produce that at 90% efficiency, or something along those lines if you catch my drift. My numbers might be a little off, but that's just the quick math in my head at the moment. Low heat dissipation. Now that right there gets me because I work with computers a lot, and I know that you want to have high heat dissipation. The more heat you dissipate away from the heat source, the better. Now, my best guess is what they mean is that the unit doesn't produce a lot of heat to begin with, and that it can get the heat away quickly, although they should have worded it better than that. Low voltage protection, that is equivalent, or at least on parallel to what I would consider like brownout protection. And high voltage protection, so you won't overvolt your products. Smart circuit protection, in other words, it's got a GFCI unit built in, meaning it's got a fuse, so if you go too high, it'll pop the fuse on this device instead of in your car, on your car's fuse box. Overload protection, overheat protection, you know, that basically is getting at if you're using the device too much and the device is being strained, it'll power itself off in order to prevent permanent damage. That is the basics of the details we have at the front and the back, so let's get inside the box. Inside the box, you'll see we have this nice blue aluminum shrouded inverter that with one hand is a little difficult to get out, so what we'll do is just put this upside down. And we get a few things. We've got the user manual, the warranty card. Let's get the actual device here out of its box. Now it feels like a sturdy device. It's got one AC plug, and we also have two USB ports here for charging things, a 1 amp as well as a 2.1 amp, and we got a power indicator, and our plug length is moderate. It's not short, but it's not long, but I think it'll be sufficient. So let's look at the user manual really quick and see if there's anything we need to know before we plug this in. Now this is a good reason why I always say to read the manual. It goes into detail about some key features that we were talking about earlier. So the power is rated at 150 watts, peak power 300, output frequency, but the efficiency rating here says it's above 85%, which technically speaking on the box it says 90% efficiency, which makes sense. Okay, that is true. It is above 85% efficiency, so you can say that. The low voltage protection is equal to or less than 10 volts, and the input overvolt shutdown is anything equal to or greater than 5 or 15.5 volts. Working temperature is anywhere from 0 to 45 degrees Celsius. Has a 12-month limited warranty and a lifetime technical warranty. Now, let's also get into this page right here because it has some interesting details. For instance, 12 volt DC only, not suitable for 24 DC or airplane use. It's recommended to use at 150 watts, and it says here try to not exceed 85% of that wattage. Power use over a long period of time may degrade the device essentially. Don't overload it, meaning don't put more than 150 watts in there. And that's kind of, expected that you wouldn't do that, but hey, accidents happen. And we've actually got something to help us see where we're at. We've got a kilowatt meter so we can see exactly how much power we are pulling. So when we plug this in, we will know all the details. So don't disassemble it, and we got stuff like that. Now sure, yes, going over the manual is kind of boring, but it has a few key notes in there to keep in mind. Try to use this within 85% of its max power at 150 watts if you want to keep the device in prolonged use. And if you're using more, then try not to use it for too long. Now this device does have active cooling. It's got a fan on the back attached to a heat sink to try and dissipate heat to make sure it doesn't overheat. But that being said, even in the manual they're saying don't overdo it. But it's time to stop talking about the manual and time to plug it into the car. So one of the more common uses for little power inverters like this is for when families go on long trips in the car. What they do is they have their kids plug their video game system up to the power inverter so their system continuously gets some juice, and that way the kids aren't bored. So what I've done is I've got my laptop that I'm going to be plugging into the inverter, and to make sure we pull as much power as we can, I'm going to be running a gaming benchmark on the laptop while using the inverter with the charger and see how much power we can pull. Alright, we got the car turned on and this thing plugged up, and one of the things I want to test really quick first is the voltage. We are sitting at around 115 to 116 volts, and our frequency is approximately 60 hertz, so this appears to be within reason to the specifications that was given on the box. So sitting right here, we have the kilowatt meter set to wattage to see how much power we are currently pulling with just my laptop idling here on the desktop. And we're around 55 watts, sometimes bumped up to 60 here and there. But let's start my gaming benchmark to force the computer to process as much data as possible, which will inevitably demand more electricity. Okie doke, so I'm just running Half-Life 2 Lost Coast, which is a simple demo benchmarking software you can get off of Steam running on the source engine here. But that's not important. So, in other words, the computer is rendering all of this real time using as much processing power as it can to get as many frames as possible, which means it is consuming more power. Now, this laptop, it's not exactly a gaming laptop, so it doesn't consume all that much more power, apparently. Now, the average power consumption is slightly higher, but we're not hitting anywhere close to the 150 watts that we're looking for. So let's see what else I can grab. One thing I've always thought would come in handy when I'm camping would be the ability to have a bug zapper for the initial few hours while I set up a tent to kill any bugs that might be in my immediate vicinity. So, I have plugged a bug zapper, my Flowtron, to the inverter. And as it sits, we're again around 54 watts. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug the laptop up along with the bug zapper, and that should theoretically get us close to 100 watts. Alright, so with the laptop plugged up, we're getting closer to 100 watts. We hit 99 watts at one point with the laptop and the bug zapper. We're still sitting closer to 90, so we got another plug. Let's plug another thing up to this and keep pushing it and see how far it can go. Alright, so I've kind of exhausted all my options here. I went inside and I got one of my flat screen TVs, a little smaller one, so it's reasonable. I got my bug zapper, because, that uses a decent amount of power. Not the biggest bug zapper in the world, but it's still something. And I got my laptop playing some video games here. And all in all, surprisingly speaking, we're only pulling about 120 watts. I honestly thought it'd be a bit more than that, but I guess not. So, with that said, you could effectively plug up a video game system, a TV, probably a few extra things too, and not even be using 150 watts. Just goes to show how efficient things are nowadays compared to what they used to be when we had old tube TVs and stuff like that. So for what it's worth, this little thing is really holding its own. We look at the stability of everything here. I have to zoom in like this. I don't know, spider. Sorry. Frequency still at about 60 hertz. Voltage about 110. Wattage about 120. So everything's working just fine. 3 different things plugged up to one inverter. I would imagine you could plug up some low-power desktops to this thing too, or I mean, really, the options are endless as long as you're within the 150 watt limit. You shouldn't experience too many problems, if any at all. This thing's performing exactly like it should. The kilowatts proving that it's stable, and I'm actually kind of impressed. I wasn't expecting to use this little amount of power given all the things plugged up to it, but hey, it's holding its own, and for that I'd have to give it to them. This little thing works as advertised. So hope you guys enjoyed the review. If you found it informative and helpful, please leave a thumbs up. If you thought it wasn't that great, leave a comment and tell me why. I'd love to improve my videos. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, show your friends, check out my other videos. I got plenty of them. And as always, I'll see you next time.